Welcome back, folks. My name is Bruce. I'm very excited to bring you all lesson number 8 of our fall quarter, and our lesson is entitled Israel Rejects God as King, and it comes to us from 1 Samuel chapter 9, verses 1 through 2, also chapter 10, verses 17 through 26. The time of writing is about 1050 BC. The places, is Gibeah and Mezpeh. The golden text says, ye have this day rejected your God, who himself saved you out of all your adversities and your tribulations. And ye have said unto him, nay, but set a king over us. 1 Samuel 10 and verse 19. And before we get into the lesson, first of all, welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you all are doing well. Hopefully you all had a great weekend. You enjoyed church on Sunday. And prayerfully, this lesson can come out plain and we can all apply the practical points from this lesson into our daily lives. Here, just to do a little bit of housekeeping to start, we are changing our format again. We're trying to tweak it just a little bit. We're going to do 2 videos again. The first video is going to be on the verses and the practical points. And the second video will be the meat and potatoes, where we get into the breakdown of the verses from Union Gospel Press is perspective. So going forward, we're just trying to make sure that we can streamline the videos and make them easy for you guys to watch. So just bear with us as we are, again, just trying to get it right. But as far as this lesson goes, again, Israel rejects God as king. Again, we talked about this in a previous lesson where the judge did such a good job. The people wanted him, Gideon, just to go back, but the people wanted Gideon to establish himself as king and set up his sons and their sons as a dynasty. And we all know what happened with that story. But here we fast forward, and now Israel is back again saying that they want a king. They don't want God to be their representative. They want to be just like everybody else, right? They want a king just like everybody else. And we're going to see in this lesson, and as we mirror it to today, we have to be very careful how we approach things, right? Sometimes we look at things and because it looks good, right, we think that, okay, this is what it's supposed to be, or we think that they're going to be successful. The more good looking they are, the more successful they're going to be, or the better leader they're going to be. And that's not always the case. And we're going to see here in the case of Saul, right, you're going to see a man who started off as humble as one can get, right? And then by the time Saul leaves the scene, well, it's as bad as it can get, right? And so let us jump right into our introduction of the lesson. Purpose of this lesson, to show that God gave Saul a wonderful opportunity to serve him and to help us recognize that God does the same for all of us. The determining factor in the results is whether we submit to God's control of our lives or try to run our own lives. So again, will you obey, right? Will you allow your faith to let you walk into situations that does make sense, right? Because God has told you, this is where I'm taking you, right? No man among Bible men had so many chances thrust upon him to make a success of life, and no man ever so missed them. Saul not only missed great opportunities, he deliberately abused them. His sun rose in splendor, but set in a tragic night. The downgrade of his life is the old familiar story of pride, egotism, and the abuse of power, leading to moral degradation and ruin. There are reminders in Saul's life of the opportunities and failures of Samson. Saul was not exactly ready to be a king, but he had an impressive physical appearance. When God chose him, he gave Saul the opportunity of a lifetime. How greatly Saul could have benefited from it, everything depended on whether he would follow God's direction or determine his own. And, as we have the benefit of hindsight, we know how his story ended. We observed in our previous lessons that during the time of Judges, Israel faced daunting political and military problems, right? Its lack of unity was an invitation for neighboring peoples to invade, raid, and oppress it. To many, the solution seemed to lie in a monarchy that could unify the people. So again, as I said, they looked around and saw all the other kings and how they, led their people into battle, and how they treated and abused the Israelites. And they thought, hey, no, again, it's no different from us today. No matter what God does for us, right? Sometimes you have those who look longingly, right, at the things of the world. Even though God has brought you through addiction, he's brought you through health situations, he's brought you through family situations, and yet and still, you still have people who are like, yeah, what they got over there looks good, and I think I want what they got. Excuse me. Yet we shall see that kingship brought its own kinds of problems: loss of freedoms, arrogance of power, and trust in human instead of divine leadership. This week's study introduces Saul, Israel's first king. Despite his ordinary family and tribal connections, his appearance won him the admiration and allegiance of his people. And we're going to circle back because again, he didn't come from an ordinary family, right? And we'll see in verse 1, his father was a mighty man of power, right? So again, that indicates that his family had at least some standing in the community. As we look at today's aim, everyone, facts, to introduce Saul and review the circumstances that surrounded his selection as the first king of Israel. The principle is to teach that despite the folly of men, God's sovereignty prevails. The application is to encourage Christians to yield to God's will instead of insisting on their own way. And again, we'll get into it here shortly, but Samuel, he came to the people, and I'm going to read into you all's hearing what he says to them. And even though they heard all of that into their hearing, they still walked away saying, no, we want a king, right? So warnings sometimes appear in scripture where you least expect them. Such is the case with today's passage. Excuse me. Such is the case with today's passage. You would not expect to find a warning in the account of the selection of the first king of Israel. God, however, used this occasion to give his people a warning. Ironically, God's grace is also quite evident. Not only did he guide Israel in the choice of a king, he also provided men to help and encourage him. Once the children of Israel arrived in the promised land, they were told to destroy its inhabitants. To some degree, this was accomplished. But a number of nations continued to harass people. But a number of nations continued to harass the Israelites. For this and other reasons, the people demanded a king, thinking that a monarchy similar to those in the surrounding nations would assure them of victory over their enemies, which again, that makes sense when God was their king. 1 Samuel 8, 1 through 22, even though Samuel outlined the consequences of such an arrangement, the people were determined to have a king. And guess what, everyone? God granted their request. And I want to read into you all's hearing exactly what Samuel told the children of Israel before he went on ahead and brought the man that God had chose out, right? So we go back into 1 Samuel chapter 8 and start at verse 11. He said, "This is what the king who will reign over you will claim as his rights. He will take your sons and make them serve his chariots and horses, and they will run in front of his chariots. Some he will assign to be commanders of thousands and commanders of fifties, and others to plow his ground and reap his harvest, and still others to make weapons of war and equipment for his chariots. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive groves and give them to his attendants. He will take a tenth of your grain and of your vintage and give it to his officials and attendants, your male and female servants, and the best of your cattle and donkeys he will take for his own use. He will take a tenth of your flocks, and you yourselves will become his slaves. When that day comes, you will cry out in relief from the king you have chosen, but the Lord will not answer you in that day." So they had a warning, right? And even then, verse 19, but the people refused to listen to Samuel. No, they said, we want a king over us. Okay, fine. And it's just like God, right? Just like God said, okay, you want it, I'm going to give it to you. And it didn't take long. Again, you know, you know, Saul reigned for 42 years, right? So you have to imagine that not all of it was bad, right? Not all of it was spent of him not doing what God wanted him to do, right? But unfortunately, you know, his flesh got the best of him. And even, you know, as we look at King David, the greatest of Israel's king, and King Solomon, they too, you know, as good as they were, as godly as they were, again, they found themselves in sticky, especially David found himself in a sticky situation where he had a man killed so that he could take that man's wife. So again, Samuel warned them, but that wasn't good enough for him. So as we look at the group emphasis for this lesson, young people, you all need to understand that part of good decision making is learning to anticipate consequences. And what does that mean? That means that you understand that if you do this, well, this may be the consequence for that, and you take account for it, right? You have a plan for it, right? Sometimes, again, if for those of you who are, you know, captains of athletic teams, right? You know that you can say one thing to one of your guys and they're going to respond a certain way. And that may cause a series of events. And then if you respond another way to someone else, well, the consequences could be different. But you have to realize and you have to make account for said consequences as you're making those decisions. For adults, we all should consider the impact of detractors, supporters, and detractors on the success of leaders, right? And when you think about it, how many times have you been in a situation where you've seen someone come in and they get absolutely no support from the people that were there prior, right? Which literally makes their job hard, if not impossible, right? And in some cases, you'll see a situation where that individual just throws their hands up and they leave, or the people who are fighting against the person who's in charge, they end up losing their job. But again, you can see the impact that has on a person. When people come in new and into leadership roles, and then they have people that have their back that are working with them, they have more success versus when, again, you come in and everyone is against you and actively working against you. It makes your job harder. It makes being a leader hard. Here's a question that I'd like to pose to you all, and going forward in these first videos, we will be posing different questions either from the lesson or from the research and discussion part. And here's a question for you all to jump down in the comment section or to just discuss with yourselves or with your coworkers or friends and family. But why do people who should know better sometimes reject God's ways? And again, why do people who should know better sometimes reject God's ways? And we're talking about believers here, right? Kind of like what we talked about earlier, where you've been blessed, God has done things in your life, and yet you still think that the grass is green on the other side. You still feel like, oh man, I can go over here, or you think fondly on your past and you remember, you know, with rose-colored glasses, right, when you were out in the world and you long for that. Again, let us jump right into our verses here, and we're starting in 1 Samuel, first chapter 9, verse 1. Now there was a man of Benjamin whose name was Kish, son of Abiel, son of Zeror, the son of Bacharath, the son of Apiah, a Benjamite, a mighty man of power. Now, again, you may say, okay, well, what was all of that? It's essentially to set up the lineage of Saul, right? His father's father's father, right? And we see that he came from the tribe of Benjamin, which we all know was the smallest of the tribes. Now, if I was in front of my normal class, I'd ask the question of who does which tribe was given the royal line. and then we'd have a discussion from that. But you all know, or for those of you that know, and for those of you that don't know, that the royal line came through the tribe of Judah. But for the instances of this first king, he came from the tribe of Benjamin. And again, as we see, his father was a mighty man of power. Again, as I said, that means that his father had a little standing in the community, right? Verse 2. And he had a son whose name was Saul, a choice young man and a goodly. And there was not among the children of Israel a goodlier person than he. From his shoulders and upward, he was higher than any of the people. So essentially, Saul was head and shoulders taller than everybody else that was in Israel at that time. Right. So imagine you're looking around and you see this abnormally tall individual in the crowd. Right. So, and on top of that, so that was his physical appearance. And he was also nice looking. Right. On top of all that, Saul was very humble. Right. You know, we're going to get into it later on. But Saul, as I said, you know, you're going to see after he was told that he's king, he didn't run out and tell the whole world that, oh man, the man of God just anointed me as king over Israel. My man went home, and my man was not really, you know, looking to beat his chest. He wasn't again. You know, I don't want to run ahead of the lesson, but we're going to see again just how humble he was. And it's really sad because, again, you know the contrast, you know what happens in the future. So to go from where he was here at this point here with Samuel to the point where he's, you know, killing priests and chasing David down because he's jealous of him and then seeking the advice of seers and all of those other things, right? And again, God had to show the children of Israel, right? Sometimes you be careful what you ask for because you just might get it, right? And so again, and he was a goodly, and there was not among the children of Israel. So God chose him. Of all of the children that he could have chosen from, he chose Saul. Right. And that's such an important factor in this, that the children of Israel did not choose their first king. Right. They didn't choose any of the kings. Right. God chose Saul, and then he anointed David. Right. So, but again, he at the time matched what God was looking for. Again, you're talking about a good-looking man that had that was humble, right? That wasn't, you know, he came from a good family, but he wasn't overbearing, right? He wasn't, you know, thinking that he was better than everybody else, right? Just because of his family standing, right? So again, God made the choice, and he saw that the choice was good. And when he was introduced to the people, again, they also said the same thing because they're not looking at the inside. They're looking at the outside. Oh, here's this handsome man. He's tall. He's good looking. He's strong. Yeah, that'll work. And unfortunately, again, sometimes we look at exterior things instead of what's on the inside, because honestly, that matters more than what a person looks like. Because again, they could be the most beautiful thing on the outside, on the inside, just as ugly as all outdoors. The practical point that goes with 1 and 2, impressive physical qualities does not disqualify one from spiritual leadership, but neither do they guarantee spiritual success. Again, impressive qualities do not disqualify one from spiritual leadership, but neither do they guarantee spiritual success. So again, what is going to guarantee you spiritual success? Being in the Spirit, praying daily, studying your word daily, talking to God daily, right? Because again, doesn't matter how good you look, doesn't matter how bad you look, you know, it's somewhere in between. What matters is, will you obey? And is your faith strong, right? Because those are the things that matters more than what you look like. More than what you sound like, what's inside your heart. As we move on to chapter 10 and verse 17, and Samuel called the people together unto the Lord to Mizpah, right? And so we skipped, the rest of chapter 9 and the first part of chapter 10. But essentially, God created the situation for Saul and Samuel to meet. Samuel and Saul met. Matter of fact, Saul was inquiring about some lost donkeys, right? And Samuel told him, hey, listen, don't worry about those donkeys. The donkeys have already been found. You, my friend, and I'm paraphrasing, but you are now going to be king over the children of Israel, right? And Saul, just like with several other people in the Bible, was like, hold on, man. I don't listen. Me? You're talking about me. And his words, he said his family was minor, right? And again, he came from the smallest tribe. So why would someone from a minor family in the smallest tribe, how would they be anointed as king? And him and Samuel conversated, and Samuel told him a list of things that would happen that would confirm that he was in fact going to be the king over the children of Israel. And those things happened. And again, still, Saul didn't, go crazy, didn't do anything out of character. He just went home, right? And so now that Samuel has anointed Saul and God has made his choice, now it's time to introduce Saul to the people. So that's where we are here in chapter 10, verse 17. So now they've been called to Mezpeh, right? And excuse me. Mezpeh means, excuse me. Sorry, folks, I had it. We'll come back around to it. But Mezpeh has a specific meaning to it. But just know that Mezpeh was the place. It means watchtower, right? So they've all been summoned to Mezpeh or Mezpeh or the watchtower, right? So that they can be introduced to who God chose to be their king, right? So here we are, verse 18. And when the Lord raised them up judges, and said unto the children of Israel, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I brought up Israel out of Egypt and delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians and out of the hands of all the kingdoms and of them that oppressed you. So now God is like, okay, after they've all gathered, right? Y'all rejected me, right? So we'll have a conversation about the fact that you all forgot that it was I that brought y'all out of Egypt. That it was I that provided for y'all in the desert. That it was I, right, that took care of everybody that tried to come against you. I brought the walls of Jericho down. I went ahead of you all and got you all victory after victory after victory. And then when you all sinned and fell into apostasy and I let them come in and they got too tough for y'all, I came in and dealt with them. And yet here we are where you all are saying, no, we want a king to rule over us. Okay. Again, reminding them of what he did and telling them, okay, again, be careful what you ask for, right? Verse 19. And ye have this day rejected your God, who himself saved you out of all your adversaries and your tribulations, and ye have said unto him, nay, but set a king over us. Now, therefore, present yourselves before the Lord by your tribe and by your thousands. So again, Samuel is speaking to the people, but he's speaking God's words, right? This is a stinging rebuke. Like, you all forgot how y'all cried out. Now, okay, fine. I'm going to give you what you want. So I tell you what. Everybody get together, tribe by tribe, and you all pass through. And as we start to eliminate until we get down to the man, that will be your king, right? Practical point for verses 17 through 19. To reject the Lord's will is to reject the Lord himself. Again, to reject the Lord's will is to reject the Lord himself. Again, that should be all of you all's prayer, especially those of you all who are born again. You should always, always, always want God's will to be done in your life. Just like in heaven. Point blank. And to reject that is to say, no, God, I got this. I'm good. I don't need you. Verse 20. And when Samuel had caused all the tribes of Israel to come near, the tribe of Benjamin was taken. Right. So again, as they're going through this process, right, this process, all of the tribes are coming through. Judah, it's all of them. They're all coming through. And then we get to Benjamin. Right. And this is the tribe. Now we got to go through the clan. And then we got to get to the individual family. And then we get to the individual right here as I'm running ahead. Verse 21. And when he had caused the tribe of Benjamin to come near by their families, the family of Matri was taken, and Saul, the son of Kish, was taken. And when they sought him, he could not be found. Right. So Saul knows that he's king. Right. It's not new to him. Right. But as he's understanding what's going on, he's not wanting to be anywhere around. Right. My man has found a little hiding spot, and he is going to head over by the supplies. Right. So they're looking for him in 22. Therefore they inquired of the Lord further, if the man should yet come thither. And the Lord answered, behold, he hath hid himself among the stuff. Right. So they had to go to the Lord and we can't find this guy. Where is this guy? This guy that you said that you've chosen to be king. Where is he? They go back to God. God, where's this man? Yeah, he's over there. He's over there hiding in the stuff. Right. And that's just like God. Right. Sometimes we do that. Sometimes we were given an assignment and we decide, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go there. Right. Like Jonah, I don't want to go there. So you go the other way, or you try to hide. And it's just like God to be like, yeah, no, there they are right there. Right there. Go on, get them, pull them out. You can't hide from God, right? That's the truly wonderful thing and the sobering thing, right? That no matter where you are, he's with you. Again, we were just praying about this morning. We were just in our prayer. No matter if you go to the highest mountain or you go to the deepest depth, there he is, right there with you. So the practical point that goes with 20 through 22, wise is the person who is not overly eager to assume a position of power. Again, wise is the person who is not overly eager to assume a position of power. A lot of times people, they want the title, right? They want the title and the prestige that comes with it, right? So they run and jump at the opportunity. And what they find out is you weren't ready for that opportunity, or you weren't ready for that position. You weren't ready for that office. So you fail miserably, right? Because you were so gung-ho and wanting to do it, right? Because again, I want to be the head person in charge. Did you go to God in prayer? Or are you operating in your own strength? Because if you're operating in your own strength, well, let the chips fall where they may. 23. And they ran and fetched him thence. And when he stood among the people, he was higher than any of the people from his shoulders and upward. So again, they inquired of God. He told them where he was. They went to the spot where God told them where he was, and they brought him out. And when they brought him out, everybody could see, oh man, look how tall this fella is. That's a good looking young man. That's a king. He looks like a king. Yeah, that's a guy that we can get behind. Yeah, that's this God fella, not Yahweh. I ain't never seen Yahweh. I didn't grow up in the wilderness, so I don't know about the manna. I don't know about the pillar of fire by night. I don't know about the cloud by day. I don't know about the quail. I don't know about water from the rock. I might not even know about the different things in the period of Judges. All that familiar. So again, they're looking at his outside appearance, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's good. That'll work right there. That's perfect." Perfect. Absolutely perfect. As we look at the practical point, let's look at 24. And Samuel said to all, and Samuel said to all the people, see ye him whom the Lord hath chosen, that there is none like him among all the people. And the people shouted and said, God save the king. Right. And so now Samuel is like, here's the guy. This is the guy. There's nobody like him in all of Israel. And as I was looking at the commentary and the different notes for this lesson, there were some that believe that there's a little bit of sarcasm here. Right. That maybe Samuel had a little insight, as to how this thing was going to play out. And we know because he told them exactly what the king was going to do to them. Right. And so again, as I said, some commentators think there's a little bit of, like I said, him saying, and there's no one like him in all of Israel, right? Just a little bit of sarcasm. And then after that, the people shouted, God save the king, or, long live the king, or whatever, and you've heard it, said throughout any time a king or queen or whoever, monarchy is coronated or whatever, however you may have you, right? They always pronounce that blessing on him, because again, you're wanting that individual's line to be long and all of that other stuff, right? So again, now the people are happy. They're like, oh, we got our guy, now we can be like everybody else. We ain't got to worry about, having God and all that other stuff. We good. The practical point that goes with 23 and 24, it is not a blessing, but a curse when ungodly people get what they want. Again, it is not a blessing, but a curse when ungodly people get what they want. Y'all want a king? Y'all rejected me? Okay. Don't come crying later. And there would be tears. As we look at verse 25, Then Samuel told the people the manner of the kingdom, and wrote it in a book, and laid it up before the Lord. And Samuel sent all the people away, every man to his house. So again, now after everyone saw Saul, everyone was in agreement. Everyone said, long live the king, God save the king, all that, whatever you want to say, right? He's officially appointed. This is the end of the coronation. Samuel has written out a list of things for every king, right? Not just Saul, but for every king. The rules, the do's and don'ts, if you will, for the kingdom period, right? And it was an extensive list. And part of that list was the king was not to usurp the priest, right? That there was a clear separation, right, between the king and the priest, right? And there were some other things, right, that all of the kings had to abide by. And so Samuel wrote that up. He laid it before God, right? And that was it. After that, Samuel's like, everyone is dismissed. Everyone is dismissed. And then you see here in the practical point for 25, we would have fewer regrets if we remember that our decisions are being made before the Lord. Again, we would have fewer regrets if we remember that our decisions are being made before the Lord. And again, you're not going to regret something if, again, you're operating in God's will, right? If you're doing what God wants you to do, there's no regrets. There's nothing to regret when you're serving the kingdom of God. There's nothing to regret when you're spreading the gospel. There's nothing to regret when you are going to the word and taking the word to someone, or you're praying for someone. There's nothing to regret when you're doing those things. It's when you're doing the other stuff, when you're operating in your own power or your own mind. That's when, okay, well, Lord, I shouldn't have did that. Or I should have waited on you. Or I should have been a little bit more patient. As we look at 26, and Saul also went home to Gibeah, and there went with him a band of men whose hearts God had touched. So again, as I said, even Saul, because remember at this time, there's no palace to go to. There's nothing set up for him, special or, out, it's not like he had a White House to go into, right? Saul just went home like everybody else. Samuel dismissed everybody. He went back home to his father. He went back home to Gibeah, right? But he didn't go back alone, right? And again, one has to again love how God knows. He knew that Saul was humble. He knew that Saul really, again, that he was going to need help. Just like for us today, he knows what we need and he'll send it to us, right? Saul didn't ask Samuel to, hey, I don't, I've never been king before. You think you can, you go to God and ask him to send me some help. No, he didn't do that, right? Because God knew his heart, just like he knows your heart, just like he knows my heart, right? So, we say one thing, but again, God looks here. And so God sent some people so that they can, hey, listen, we're with you, King. We're going with you. Wherever you go, we're going. We are your servants, right? And so again, I would imagine that those men, gave him a little bit of juice, if you will, gave him a little bit of unction, right? So that he can walk in the office that he has now been given. As we look at the practical point for 26, we should be thankful for the support of godly people, remembering that such support is a gift from God. And I love that. Again, we should be thankful for the support of godly people, remembering that such support is a gift from God, right? Again, God knows exactly what you need and he will meet that need, right? Again, but you got to have your faith. Your faith has to be on point. You have to be doing what you're supposed to do, right? You can't be pulling the opposite direction and think that, okay, God is he's going to be cool with that. Or that he's going to send people to co-sign on what you're doing, because that's not going to happen. Right. But it is truly a wonderful thing. And thank God for those godly people who come through in times of need. Those people who intercede on behalf of other people. Those people who always have a word for you. They always have a scripture, right? Always willing to help, always got something positive to say to get you where you need to get. What a truly wonderful thing, right? And as we are closing, again, I want to reiterate the question for the comment section again. Why do people who should know better sometimes reject God's ways? Again, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Love to see your comments down in the comment section. Or again, this is thought-provoking discussion, wherever you are throughout your day, right? And so before we end this video, again, we always want to take the opportunity to extend, right? For those of you who don't know the Lord, today is a good day to give yourself to the Lord. Our salvation is as easy as ABC, right? And so all you have to do is confess with your mouth and believe in your heart that Jesus died, he was raised, and that he is interceding on our behalf right now. He's defeated death and the grave, right? If you believe that, if you're willing to accept him into your heart, you are saved. Heaven is rejoicing. Here we're at JMG, we're rejoicing. Again, find you a Bible-believing church and plug in with the man and woman of God, right? And plug in with the saints of that ministry and let them gird you up, let them help you in this new journey that you're on, right? And so I look forward to seeing you all later on this week, and prayerfully you all have a good rest of your week. And you come back and we get into the meat and potatoes of this lesson. But until then, I look forward to seeing you all back on the corner. God bless.